So welcome. Thank you all for taking the time to join our virtual Indigenous Women Girls Gathering. We are hosting this event to share our breast cancer prevention toolkit and highlight reproductive health and justice. Right now, I would like everyone to introduce yourselves in the chat. Please write your name, your pronouns, where you're from, and how to say Mamaqs in your language. So my name is Jasmine Jimwalk. I go by she, her. I'm from Elam, Alaska. And in Elam, we say Amas for Mamaqs. And I'll write mine in the chat too.
Mamaqs are breasts. Nice.
Yes. And while we're getting some introductions going in the chat, I would like to say a few words. The Alaska Community Action on Toxics Office sits on the traditional homeland of the Dena'ina. ACAT is committed to recognizing and celebrating the culture and language of the Dena'ina people. So ACAT, at ACAT, we are driven by a core belief in environmental justice. Alaska Community Action on Toxics empowers communities to eliminate exposure to toxics through collaborative research, shared science, education, organizing, and advocacy. And before we jump into the toolkit, I could do the gender inclusivity statement. If I could have Sara share the screen. So ACAT recognizes that people of different gender identities can be at risk of breast cancer. Furthermore, transgender, queer, non-binary, and two-spirit people may face discrimination and a lack of access to gender-affirming breast cancer information, screening, and care. ACAT advocates for an approach to breast cancer research, awareness, and resource access that is gender inclusive. Breast cancer research is needed that includes the experiences and investigates the risk factors of people of diverse gender identities, and for those who may or may not have undergone gender-affirming care. Making breast cancer healthcare inclusive of and accessible to people of marginalized gender identities is incredibly important. Throughout this toolkit, we have attempted to be mindful of our gendered language. In this toolkit, we use the term peoples when addressing broad statements about breast cancer, and we use the gender term woman in statements based on information gathered from studies performed with women participants, and most do not specify other gender identities. Gender inclusivity in ACAT's breast cancer prevention work is an ongoing goal of the organization, and we welcome suggestions as to how we might improve. And I really want to highlight the last sentence that I just read, that we welcome suggestions to how we might improve. So always feel free to reach out to us. And if we have Natuk Simmons here yet, we could do the blessing before we get started. I don't want to just jump into the toolkit.
Well, because of some technical difficulties Nutalk is having right now, she may join us after a while, but we're going to go ahead, and Vi is willing to give us a blessing. And so, oopsies. Did you all hear that?
Yes.
Challenges of technology. My name is Waghiyi, daughter of the late John and Della Waghiyi, native village of Savoonga tribal citizen, program director with Alaska Community Action on Toxics. And I do this work because I'm a big mother and grandmother. And it's unfortunate that Nutak is not able to join us. However, I'd like to give a blessing at this time. Igam si kayo vikam kin kiyakan nakhlaka pakhlak usokam kinigam si kayo vikam kin. As we come together, we ask for blessing that as we have this webinar on protecting our mamaqs, the toolkit we created that women have the tools to protect their reproductive health. We see a need for this, so that we humbly ask that the presentation is taken fully and that women are able to make informed decisions, since we have so much contamination in our lands, airs, and waters. And we humbly ask that what needs to be heard by everybody that joined us, we thank them for making time, first of all, but also what they need to hear is share as we share this information, so that they take it and share it with other women, because it's so important. As women, we are the first environment for our children, our womb, and we're nurturers and caretakers of our families, our children, and communities. Amen.
Thank you so much for doing that, Vi. Awesome. So now, Vi, if you want to jump into the toolkit. So we have our breast cancer prevention toolkit, protecting our mamaqs to protect our future generations. And we'll have Waghiyi. She just introduced herself. And after her, we will have Samarys, Seguinot-Medina, Dr. PH Borica from Puerto Rico, and Environmental Health Director at ACAT. Selma and Vi will introduce our toolkit now.
Thank you.
We believe everyone has the right to clean air, clean water, and toxic-free food. We're a small woman-led organization and recognize that our people in the Arctic are some of the most highly contaminated population on the planet because of where we live. We now know that the Arctic has become a hemispheric sink. So our goal is to be, one of our mission is the precautionary principle. It is always best to be safe. Like so many of the issues that we're facing here are burdens we did not create. So we felt that there's a need to create this breast cancer prevention toolkit, which we call Protecting Our Mamaqs. And mamaqs in my dialect, St. Lawrence Island, Yupik, means breast. And the purpose of this to offer training to community health aides, the community health aid program, since they are the first responders and first medical provider our people see in rural Alaska. And some of the most health harms we're seeing are in some of rural Alaska communities that we work with. So we created this as a tool for the community health aid program, which we've offered during their annual training, and is to train the community health aides and other healthcare professionals about chemicals that are found in the Arctic that may be linked to breast cancer. Also to help our CHAP and the healthcare professionals determine if a patient may have had an environmental exposure. And to include information to share with their patients on how to reduce exposures to chemicals of concern. And the brief description for the toolkit, and we also, along with the toolkit, which has the training program for the community health aides, we also shared fact cards that we will be sharing in clinic lobbies and anywhere that we may find women who may be going in for a breast exam or to their clinic visit. As I mentioned, protecting our mamaqs, an environmental health toolkit for breast cancer prevention, is designed to train the community health aides, practitioners, and other healthcare professionals, and the people of Alaska about environmental contaminants found in the North and Arctic region that are linked to breast cancer. The toolkit includes facts about cancer-causing and hormone-disrupting chemicals that contaminate our nakapik, our traditional foods, the air in our lands and waters of Alaska Native people, as well as in our households and the personal care products that we bring into our home unknowingly. It also explores the effects of these chemicals on human health, offers guidance on how to reduce our exposures, and provides an environmental health assessment tool to help the CHAP program identify patient exposures. The information is necessary to help Alaska Native women reduce their exposure to harmful chemicals that may cause cancer and hormone disruption. Discuss risk reduction with their patients as an important part of breast cancer prevention and care for those living with cancer. After reading these toolkit fact cards, women will have the information necessary to develop plans to reduce their own exposures to harmful chemicals, encourage their friends and family to lead, to develop their own plans to reduce their exposure to harmful chemicals. And just some facts about breast cancer in Alaska. In Alaska, female breast cancer is the most common cancer diagnosed among our Alaska Native women. And that's alarming to me as a cancer survivor myself and as a lifelong Alaskan. Also, we know Alaska Native women are more likely to be diagnosed with breast cancer at a younger age and or later stages than non-Native women in Alaska. Breast cancer in women under the age of 40 years is 58% higher in Alaska Native women compared to non-Hispanic white women in the same region. So it's important that we make informed decisions because, as I mentioned, these are burdens we didn't create. It's alarming to know that there's 130,000 chemicals made and produced on the globe that we live on. And only a handful are ever tested for their safety before they're put on the market. So we are being exposed without our consent. We find these toxic chemicals in our daily lives, in our workplaces, environments, and communities like mine, who live off the land and ocean like we have for decades and centuries. So it's important that the more we know about how we may be able to prevent harm to ourselves, to our bodies, to our children, to the young girls that we care for and nurture, but also for our future generations. And my colleague, Sama.
Thank you, Wai. I don't know if I have the capability of sharing my screen. So I'm gonna try that now before I start. Let me know when you're able to see it. Yeah, perfect. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Wai, for your introduction to the toolkit. Hi, everybody. My name is Sama, and I'm the Environmental Health Director here at Alaska Community Action on Toxics. I'm Boricua from Puerto Rico, and it's an honor to share this work. We put a lot of effort into this, and we had many people that work on this project. So important for the health and well-being of Alaska Native women, but all women and people identifying as women. The art of the toolkit of the cover, I'm showing it here in the first slide, was made by a summer intern, Kelly Dunn. So we are very grateful for her talent, and we are very happy with the final product of the toolkit, and we are very excited to share it with you. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna go over the toolkit. I'm not gonna show all the toolkit, but I just wanna show you some parts so you can get familiarized how it's organized and what kind of resources and information we're sharing with people. You can also find it on our website, and I can share that and show you how to access that at the end of the presentation. So some of the things we already covered, and thank you, Jasmine, for that beautiful land acknowledgement. So I'm gonna go over some of these a little bit quick, and then I'll take some time on other slides. So I just wanted to give gratitude to all the people, especially the author, Sara Petras, former colleague of ACAT, and many of the contributors like summer interns and peer reviewers from communities that review this work, former health aides that review the toolkit to make sure that we are sharing information in an adequate manner and relevant to the people that's supposed to serve and provide this important resource. Like Vice said, this is a collaboration with the CHAP program, the Community Health Aid Programs of Alaska, and we've partnered with them before in other toolkits to help share environmental health and justice information and knowledge. So it's an honor to always work with the community health aides. We have a lot of respect for our community health aides. They're the first line of service, healthcare service in many remote communities in Alaska. So this is a very important tool that we want to share with them and feel honored of working with them. We also like to honor, and maybe Vi later can share more about the story of Annie Aloha. We honor especially Annie. Annie was a former health aide from native village of Savoonga, where Vi is from. And Annie was and is a champion of environmental health and reproductive health and justice in Alaska. We follow her example and her leadership in confronting the systems that oppress us and that bring all this pollution to our lands. So we always honor Annie Aloha, former health aide and champion of WHEJAC in environmental health and justice in Alaska. I think Vi kind of covered that part. One of the reasons why we're doing this and why we want to share the connections of environmental contaminants, environmental injustice, and health is because in Alaska, we are, because of military pollution, industrial pollution, but also global transport of chemicals that come through air and ocean currents, travel all the way to the poles of the earth. And in this case, it's called the grasshopper effect. It just moves and it builds up in the Arctic and many of these chemicals. And now in the era of rapid climate change, we can see that with the melting of the permafrost, with getting into our traditional foods, plants, water, soil, many of these chemicals now, because of climate change and rapid warming of the climate, are melting, and then many of these chemicals are being released to the environment. So this is another reason why we feel this is so important. And many people, including me, when I came to Alaska, I thought I was coming to a pristine Alaska, which there is a lot of beautiful pristine land in this beautiful state. But there's also, like you see in the map on the right, all those dots and little colored points in this map on the right show a summary of toxic waste sites in Alaska, from military sites to Superfund sites to all closed landfills that are not following regulations. So there's a lot of injustice going on. So that's one of the main reasons. We want to work with prevention. We follow the precautionary principle, which tells it's better to be safe than sorry. So the goal of this is work with prevention. And that's one of the main things that we do with our work. Like I said, hundreds of toxic waste sites scattered throughout Alaska, industrial pollutants from global sources, air and ocean currents, like I mentioned, other local sources of pollution, like pesticides, contaminated foods. Work environments can also provide sources of contamination and pollution, personal care and consumer products. So we want to prevent harm and eliminate unnecessary exposures, and we want to raise awareness. So that's why we want to share this toolkit with you. Like Vi said, these are some of the learning objectives. We want to share this knowledge with women and work with prevention. Also those fact sheets that Vi mentioned and the poster. So this is a snapshot of the table of content of the toolkit. The toolkit has 64 pages and all are full with great information. The first part of the toolkit explains the overview of it, the collaboration that happened and that make this happen. What are the environmental links to breast cancer and prevention, the objectives, and like I said, the collaboration with CHAP. In the first module, the toolkit has 2 modules. The first one, it talks about breast cancer and environmental chemicals. And we explain what is breast cancer. You're gonna see more facts about breast cancer in Alaska. If I share 3 important ones, you're gonna learn about environmental contaminants linked to breast cancer, very important part. Breast cancer and environmental justice. Prevention starts with education, that's what we're doing here. We talk about pink washing, and I'm gonna explain what pink washing is. I'm gonna define it soon, and breast cancer prevention. The second part of the toolkit, we thought we wanna do something that people can really use. We don't wanna just write a book with a lot of words and sentences in it. So we created fact sheets, and each fact sheet tells, explains the relationship of breast cancer and air pollution, flame retardants, food packaging, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, that's PFAS, in household consumer products, persistent organic pollutants, we call POPs, a fact sheet about personal care products and cosmetics, pesticides, traditional foods, diets, and nutrition. Then at the end, we have an assessment kind of a table that community health aides can use to do an environmental health history and assessment for participants or people with concerns. And then we have additional resources at the end and the references. This is the inclusivity statement. And then we explain these are some of the facts that I share, and they go into more detail. A lot of these chemicals are affecting women of color, Alaska Native women and women of color here in Alaska and the US. So we wanted to provide the facts about where we stand in terms of breast cancer. Breast cancer in women under the age of 40 is 58% higher in Alaska Native women compared to non-Hispanic white women in the same region. So we see some statistics. The other statistic that I mentioned that is of concern, and that's why we're doing this work, is that we see it in younger women, in younger ages. Younger women having breast cancer. So part of this work is also not only working with the CHAP program and the community health aides, but we are also, as part of this project, we're working with high schools and youth and young adults in talking about this issue. It's an environmental injustice issue because, like I said, many people of color, Alaska Native women, Native American women, Black, Latina women suffer for breast cancer more than other groups of women compared to white women, for example. There's more than 350,000 chemicals worldwide that are currently registered for production and use, and most of these chemicals are not tested for safety. So that's why we need to do this work. We need to learn what are the best ways to prevent these harms. So this was one of the first fact sheets that is in the first module. Pinkwashing. Pinkwashing is, and we did a webinar about this. I think it was last year in October. Pinkwashing is when a company organization that claims to care about breast cancer by promoting a pink ribbon product, but at the same time produces, manufactures, and sells products that are linked to the disease. And we see a lot of the pink ribbons in many things, like from oil and gas industry using the pink ribbon to say that they support breast cancer while they produce some of the chemicals that are causing it. So that is pinkwashing. Is a term that we are learning about, and we like people to learn about it. There's a campaign from Breast Cancer Action. It's called Think Before You Pink. If you want to learn more, we have this information in the toolkit, but you can go to their website also and check out all the work they're doing to educate people about pinkwashing. And please feel free to write questions in the chat. We'll have a space for Q&A at the end, which is the best part I always think of these presentations. Like I said in the module 2, we have all these fact sheets, and we made them in a way that we use visuals and bullet points to make it easy for community health aides and whoever's using the toolkit to understand and go through the information in a more fun way. For example, we have one about air pollution. We know in many of the communities, remote communities in Alaska, air pollution is a huge concern. In all the way up north, we know we have oil and gas, also mining developments. So air pollution is a big concern. That's why it's the first fact sheet that we added to the toolkit. The fact sheets, they are organized in this way. First, they define the issue. What is air pollution in this case? Then they explain a little bit of the science behind chemicals of concern. Then it goes to a part that explains how are we exposed to these pollutants. And then the last part of the fact sheet here continues explaining the connection to breast cancer. And then the last part is how to protect yourself. What can you do about it? And for example, for air pollution, and I'm going to share one of these quotes, not necessarily indoor heating and cooking through the burning of wood or gas in the home may create similar hazards as those observed in outdoor air, including particulate matter, PAHs, benzene. And it says, we found that in epidemiologic studies, there were higher associations of breast cancer with stove fireplace use. Exposure to tobacco smoke is also a concern for indoor air quality, not only for active smokers, but also those exposed involuntarily to passive smoke. And then we just share some ways that you can reduce your exposure to air pollution. Like, for example, avoiding or limiting exposure to air pollution and the best ways to decrease this risk. So, and then we just list all kinds of ideas that you can do to minimize exposure to these air pollutants. And then I'll share some others so you can see. We have one on flame retardants. Flame retardants are chemicals that are created to supposedly prevent flammability in a wide range of consumer products that we have in our homes and places that we work. There are hundreds of different types of flame retardants. Sadly, the science shows that they do more harm than provide a protective factor. So why is a chemical of concern? These are endocrine disrupting chemicals. For example, in this case, it mimics our hormones, and that affects completely our reproductive system, for example, in this case. And they are linked to many other health issues. How are we exposed? In the case of flame retardants, we have examples here. We expose through plastics in electronics that volatilize and are on top of surfaces in the home. They settle in dust. We can find them in children's products also, which is another concern, in many other products. But I definitely encourage people to go in these fact sheets and start reading. And this is a way also to start conversations and engaging with us. We want to hear from you and get feedback from you to see if this was useful. I'll show another one. Oh, here's the assessment. So those are the how it's designed. And then this is the assessment at the end for community health aides and anyone that wants to use this as a tool to assess their environmental health can use this. And it's a kind of a screening process where we collect information about the participant or the patient in this case, if it's a CHAP person working with a patient, on how is the indoor home environment and other questions about food and water contamination, occupational exposure, and hobbies. So that's the assessment. Then at the end of the toolkit, we have additional resources. And what we did, we share resources on breast cancer and environmental health. And we list many other websites and groups that work with us, sharing knowledge on how to avoid and prevent breast cancer. So this is just a link. There's several pages of additional resources. I encourage you to look at them. They are great resources. And I know we use them overall throughout the toolkit in the different fact sheets. So you should go ahead and check those out. In the last part, we created a poster, and we are sharing this poster with all the clinics. We are working to organize now additional trainings for regions and clinics here in Anchorage and throughout Alaska. So if you know a clinic or a CHAP person that might be interested in learning, or that you know that they're gonna use this, please let us know. We would like to engage and continue sharing this resource. So we have this poster, and we also have, like Vi mentioned, the fact cards. And the fact cards we have, and you can find all of this in our website. They're good to just leave on tables, give to people to take home, and they can share. It's kind of a summary of each fact sheet. You can have it in a small fact card, and it's easier to digest. I wanted to share this, that we have an Indigenous Womxn Network Facebook group. And this is another way that we're engaging and sharing this information. If you like social media and have Facebook, please join us. And we have conversations going and dialogues happening all the time about these topics. So we would love to hear from you. And very important, I didn't want to forget to thank the people, the institutions that are helping us do this work, giving us support and funding. So super grateful for the funding and support and encouragement from the Alaska Room for Women, who provided the grant to do this toolkit, the Cedar Tree Foundation and Groundswell Fund, and individual donors that support ACAT's work. Thank you very much, and I would like to open it to any questions. Oh, I think that Pam might go next, right? Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have Pam go after the short break. So in a bit,
Okay.
we'll go. But yeah, any questions?
Type in the chat.
Or bye.
Can I just add, we're having the fact cards translated into the 3 top languages in our state. Where we have a group that's translating it into Yuhtun. And afterward, we're going to be looking for funding, additional funding to have it translated into Inupiaq and also to St. Lawrence Island, Yupik. And, you know, we're in my community, we have 2 formerly used defense sites that are from the Cold War era. And we now know our people have 4 to 10 times higher PCBs than the average American in the lower 48. And as Sama mentioned, there's development in close proximity to our homes, food gathering, hunting, fishing locations throughout the state. We are all for safer, we're not anti-development, but Alaska has so much potential for safer alternatives. We're not against that at all. However, we recognize the importance of offering this education and information because we are seeing so many health disparities in our people. Most of the communities we travel to, cancer is their biggest concern. Not only cancer, birth defects, heart disease, strokes, diabetes, obesity, and learning and developmental disabilities. Also, our ability to conceive, our ability to carry our children. So it's so important that we educate ourselves. So that's one of the main reasons we made this toolkit. So I just wanted to share that briefly. So watch out for the version, the fact cards in Yuchtun, and then also when we get funding in Inupiaq and St. Lawrence Island, Yupik. So I just wanted to share that. Discussion and questions.
Thank you, Wai. I wanted to add that you can go to akaction.org to publications. We have a beautiful new website that we are super proud of also. So we encourage you to go there and check it out. And there you can see also the poster. Feel free to print and share as you like. It's there for everybody, it's free. Should we have a break and come back with questions and Pam's presentation? Whoever needs a little break, or we can continue.
Yeah, no,
And
let's
just- yeah.
take maybe like 5 minutes and go use the bathroom, stretch your legs. We will come back at 2:55. Does that sound good? Okay. All right, take a break for 5 minutes. All right, it is 2:55. And I hope folks had a good break and were able to relax a bit. We will jump into the next part of our virtual women's gathering. We're going to jump into the reproductive health and justice, and we're going to start with a skin deep exercise done by Sara Thomas. She is Inupiaq Sinisikanik. She grew up as a teacher's kid in Utqiagvik, and she is the environmental justice organizer at ACAT. So Sara, if you want to take over.
Uvlami. Uvluluadak, everybody. Uvungatsakanyak. Thank you so much, Jasmine, for introducing me. Really honored to be in this space with you all. Honored to work for ACAT and follow in the footsteps of Annie Aloha and others who have paved the way for really powerful work being done. I see that we are a guiding light for the other states in our work we're doing here, and it feels really good and meaningful to do this type of work alongside you all. And so with that, so we're one of the main, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly on this toolkit that we already saw a little bit about. But this particular piece is the personal care products and cosmetics. I wonder if it's going to let me click in it. So one of the main ways that we're exposed to the toxics is through our personal care products. And that's also one of the most ways that we can most make meaningful changes in our toxic load. And so, but we have to know about it first. We have to make informed decisions. And so in our toolkit, and I'm sure if it's going to let me click over, let me see real quickly. No. Well, here's one page of it. I can't go to the next one because, but we have a whole section on personal care products and cosmetics. And some of the chemicals of concern are phthalates. And this is a group of chemicals used in some personal care products and cosmetics. They're very widely used, and and you can see there's biomonitoring studies have shown that they've been found in people of all ages, and they're primarily a perfume or fragrance. And it's an unfortunate thing to learn that a lot of our products have a known carcinogen, a known endocrine disruptor, and but we do know that we can find alternatives if we know how to look for them. Another one that's on here is triclosan, and that's an antibacterial chemical, which is in a lot of products. And if we knew how terrible they were for us, we wouldn't use them. And so how can we do that? How can we avoid them? Let's see. Okay, hold on a second. Oh, I can control my page as I. So yeah, this chapter is all about that, and there's a lot of resources here. Myself, as a breastfeeding mother, I have a 1-year-old. It's really important to me to choose products that I know are not going to add to my toxicity that I'm passing on to my baby. I know that the food I'm eating and the water, I can't control that, but the products that I'm using, I can control. And so in our toolkit, we highlight a couple of resources that we use. And one is the Environmental Working Group Skin Deep database. I just wonder really quickly, do folks here know about the Skin Deep database? Can you give us a thumbs up if you've heard of it before? Let's see if I can see. Well, our ACAT folks know about it. Let's see. Pam, you know about it? That's great. Well, for those of you who have not heard of it before, it's a really great database, and it doesn't have every product that you're gonna use. It's kind of, they're always updating it with more products as new products come out. But they do have a lot of products. So I want to ask the group, if anyone has a product that you'd like us to check right now, would you put a product in the chat? And this, anything lotion, makeup. Does anyone want to add one to the chat that we could use and look up right now? I can see the chat. Okay, there's some people. Let's see what you all say. Monday shampoo and conditioner. Oh, okay, we'll start there. I think Monday rings a bell to me. My daughter, I think, wanted to get that from Target. And so, and nowadays my daughter already knows if she's going to ask me for a product, she knows I'm gonna say, did you look it up in the Skin Deep? Because it's really important. So I was looking up Aveeno earlier. We'll go to the Monday and see if that shows up. So here we are. And of course, there's a lot of pop-ups. Continue to cite. It is a great resource, though, the Environmental Working Group, with a lot of constantly updated science and information about products. So I highly recommend adding your name to that, to your email to that that pop-up when it comes up. But so you could see, so let's look at the Monday volume conditioner. So it says that there's a 5. Let's click on it here. So it's on a scale from 1 to 10 with the smaller numbers is verified product, verified to have to be low toxicity and to be safer. But it goes through the ingredients that are concerned. So this one has low on the cancer-causing ingredients, high on the allergies and immunotoxicity, and use restrictions, low on developmental and reproductive toxicity. So you can go into more detail down here. So ingredient scores, you have, and I don't know about you all, I've spent a lot of time when I'm sitting in the bathroom, just like reading the back of products. And a lot of times you have no idea what these things are. Well, this website is great because it does give you a little bit more information. So it looks like, just for example, this one, benzhydronium chloride, you could kind of guess that would be a toxic one, but let's click on it. It has a 7. So it's an anti-static agent, hair conditioning, and preservative. The concern is that it causes developmental reproductive toxicity, allergies, and immunotoxicity. It has use restrictions. I'm not sure what that means. I would guess maybe in some countries, or and low, but it is showing for endocrine disruption, moderate non-reproductive organ system toxicity. So it can leave you with like some questions as to what all these things mean, but it's, again, for just your average person trying to understand a little bit more about these things. There's more information that you can kind of dig around and read, particularly about what all of these ingredients have, what it means. So I know someone put Windex. I would guess that one's highly toxic. Let's see what it says if it's on here. Oh, well, maybe it could be that this is it Windex?
Skin deep.
Yeah, it could be that it's
Website.
yeah, that it's for products that we're using on our body, which Windex would not be. But I do want to point out that in our in our database, I won't go back to it, but there is there's a couple other resources. There's a mobile app put out by Silent Springs Institute called Detox Me, which also has sources of toxic chemicals in your home, which can help you to make informed decisions. And then there's also one called safecosmetics.org. And again, you can find this on the Skin Deep, in our ACAT, in our toolkit. And and then yeah, there is an app you can download on your phone. So this has been a game changer for me. Sometimes you're not sure about a product and you look into it and it's kind of like, in the middle range. Let's look up one more. Let's look up the Chelsea. What did you say? The So Totally Clean Deep Pore Cleanser. And as we learned with pink washing, there's also green washing. There's products. Oh, so that one didn't show up. So unfortunately, that one's not on there. Let's look at the next one, Nivea body spray. What are we? Oh, also not on there. Okay, so there's limitations to the database, but the more that people interact with it, you can actually request a product on there, and that can be a good resource. Pantene. Oh, okay, let's try Pantene's. Pantene Pro V. So some higher numbers, on there. I know I really love the Pantene, this one. It really works well on your hair, but you see that it's a 5, which is not great. If you look at, it's got moderate concerns for cancer causing agents, and which would be the fragrance, I think, or let's see. So it might be that behentrimonium methylsulfate. Anyways, this is just some tools you can use to make informed decisions. And what I'm always talking to my daughter about, because my daughter's in 8th grade and she's very into perfumes. And it's an unfortunate thing to come across as someone who, I used to love perfume as well, but to realize that a lot of it is toxic and is adding to our load, our toxicity in our body, and our potential for developing cancer down the road. And it's just asking yourself, if I were to get cancer and I knowingly used these products that were negatively impacting my health, would it be worth it? And so, just trying to convey that to young people can be difficult, because it's hard for them to maybe think about the future like that. But oh, so there's a lot of native deodorants. I wonder that too, because I do use that type of deodorant. Let's look that one up. So on the lower end, that's good. And of course, a lot of times most of these products, skincare products, even deodorants, you can usually make your own with really simple ingredients. Deodorant at its core is like baking soda, I think. And there's a lot, especially I noticed during COVID, with the TikTok boom, there's so many things out, so many resources out there on how to make your own. And that's going to be, the things that have the least amount of preservatives and added, fragrances and such. That's going to be the best. Oh, good. There's a cleaning products section. So thank you for that, Wasabi.
Sarah, can I add something?
Please do.
Discussion? No. Thank you. It's so unfair that the public has to, this is the responsibility of the government. The government should be asking these companies, checking for safety before they put this in consumer products, women's consumer products. People, we are in reproductive age, affecting our hormones. As you saw, many of them were affecting hormones, the immune system, many of them. The ones that says fragrance, I saw that the last one you checked, Sarah, had a high score on fragrance. Most of the time that's phthalates, the chemical that Sara mentioned. And then they don't test for their safety. They just put it in a product. And there's thousands of products like that put in products that we use every day. And the problem is that we don't use one product. When we talk about this at the school, Sara and Jasmine and others here are going to schools talking about this. They ask the kids, so what do you use today? Yeah, so yeah, I use a deodorant, that's one. And I use soap, that's 2. And I use toothpaste, that's 3. And I have some hand cream, that's 4. And when we see, it's not only one product and one chemical that we're exposed to. And then having to try to find our way of understanding all those big scientific words, that's an injustice too. So that's why also we're doing this work, because government is failing of protecting the people. So anyway, maybe Pam will touch on that later, but I just wanted to say that. So I share the EWG link in the chat so people can also just explore. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. And as we can see, Windex has a D rating, which is not good, but luckily there are a lot of products out there. I buy a window cleaning product that I believe is made by Mrs. Bronner, or I don't know, one of those all natural products, and it smells better, it cleans just as good. And actually, I've lately just been using vinegar, which you know, a lot of people don't. It takes some getting used to, right? If you're used to the stuff that smells really like for example, bleach, you know, maybe like me, maybe you grew up in a household that they use bleach, and maybe it smells clean to you. Well, if we can really think about the fact that it goes into our water supply, that it's toxic, that you know, a baby could accidentally ingest it and die, well, then it makes sense to move toward a healthier product. And like Sama mentioned, we are going around to schools around the state, beginning in the end of this month. We've gone into West High School for our first school visit, and we're sharing this widely. So just a flag, if anyone is interested in folks from ACAT joining your child's school and presenting on this information. We are actively seeking out student groups and science teachers to partner with on getting this information out widely to children, to kids. And in the springtime, we're going to unveil an art contest based on this breast cancer prevention toolkit that's specifically for youth, because these things, you know, this is a lot right here in this book, but it's really important. And I know for me as a young person, I really would have loved to know about all these resources. A lot of times when we're sharing about the Skin Deep database, kids are really excited about it. And it puts a little bit of that disempowerment and maybe a little bit of, you know, depressing. It's a bit depressing to learn about how our government operates, and how, you know, why are all these products available in the US when they're banned in many countries, like things like that. Well, this gives us a little bit more agency, a little bit more power over what we are putting into our bodies, and knowledge is power.
I just want to also share, as you know, as a mother of 4 sons, and I'm now raising a grandchild. And, you know, I had no knowledge of any kind of exposures, let alone how we're being exposed without our consent through these cleaning products or personal care products. And some of us, all those dots you saw on that map, there's 700 current and formerly used defense sites, former military bases. And we have a state that's heavily dependent on fossil fuel. We have historic mining. Because of where we live in the Arctic, contaminants are, as we mentioned, arrive here through air and ocean currents from the rest of the globe. They get trapped here and South Pole where it's cold. So take that, because of where we live, because of the former military bases, because of the historic mining or other development, and then throw in personal care products, cleaning products. And we're not even talking about how these persistent organic pollutants are ending up in our traditional foods. So I've had to learn to educate myself about these exposures where we're being contaminated without our consent. These multinational corporations are driven by greed and profit and do not take our human health into account. It's alarming to learn that my 4-year-old grandson has a higher body burden of flame retardants than adults. They're in carpet padding, furniture foam, the electronics we use daily, items like this laptop we're on, sitting in front of, the office chair we're sitting on, the carpet our feet are on in our office, the carpet padding, all have flame retardants, but we now know they're more dangerous. So, you know, I come from a family, we were a family of 8. We grew up at a contaminated former military base. Half of in my immediate family, my parents and siblings, we've had cancer. And, you know, my mom loved to keep her home clean. She used a lot of bleach and pine sol and also loved her perfume, right? She's now passed away. However, she had an unstillborn child after me. Cancer, heart disease, strokes, diabetes, depression. And to know what these agencies, what I've come to learn about them, they should be the one looking out for the most vulnerable, like my grandchild, because of us that live in the Arctic and live off the land and ocean. You know, the most vulnerable, those with compromised health, the elderly, the children, and decision makers who are supposed to look out for our health. I don't see that. It's very disheartening. However, like Sama mentioned, it should not be put on us. However, that's why we offer these opportunities to educate yourself. We have Indigenous Women Girls Gatherings. It's an opportunity to educate women about environmental health and justice, but how to empower women, how to contact your legislators, how to testify, you know, how to you know, how to speak in front of other opportunities like this, you know, and it's so it makes me feel good that Sama and Jasmine at one time were interns in our office, and to look at, they're now women of power. And we're all about offering education so we can make informed decisions, because decision makers who are supposed to look out for us do not. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Vi.
Are there comments or people are sharing?
Yeah, make sure you look in the chat for some links and some more great fact sheets that ACAT has. And we'll pass it to Pam.
Thank you, Sarah. And it's just a real honor and a pleasure to be with all of you this afternoon, and really, really appreciate having this discussion with you today. So can you see my screen? Not yet. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm gonna go to full mode here. For some reason, there we go. Yeah, thank you. I do just love this and love to be with you and have these discussions and figure out how we can work together to address these injustices. And that's really what we're all about here at ACAT. So, you know, we hope you'll stay active with us and let us know if you have questions or things that you're concerned about that you'd like us to work with you to address. And one thing I wanted to say about the database, and thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing the EWG database. It's a wonderful tool, and we shouldn't have to use it. As Sama said, it shouldn't be the responsibility of a mom or an auntie or a grandparent to have to go to the store and try to figure out what's safe for a child or for themselves or their family. That is an injustice. And yet, you know, we want to be informed. We want to know how to buy things that are safe for our families. So this is a wonderful tool. And it's important to know also that these personal care products are not required to be labeled. So that's why this disclosure of ingredients by Environmental Working Group is important, because the companies are not required to share this information. So it's a fundamental lack of our right to know. And so that's why we're working to change that, change policies and work together so that the manufacturers and the government are accountable to us as people who want to buy safe products for our families. So that's why, you know, you can find cancer-causing substances in many of these products, but yet you don't know it when you look at the label because they don't have to put those things on the label. And then another thing I wanted to bring up is that it's also true that we can't buy our way out of this problem. And that's why it is important that we also work to change policies to hold manufacturers accountable. We have market campaigns to hold companies accountable. We have to change the system. So that's what I'll be talking a little bit about this afternoon. I want to talk about a class of chemicals that are especially harmful. They're PFAS, and you may have heard of these, per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. They're also known as forever chemicals. They're extremely complex. There are more than 12,000 substances in this group of chemicals, and they're used in many products. These are some of the products that they're used in. Here in Alaska, a lot of the contamination of drinking water has been a result of the use of PFAS in firefighting foams that are used to extinguish fires on military sites as well as airports. So many sites around Alaska, as you'll see in a map a little further down, are contaminated. Community drinking water sources, private wells, probably dozens of communities now in Alaska are contaminated because of the use of these firefighting foams that are extremely dangerous. But you can see here a whole list of household products that these chemicals are in, as well as including personal care products, dental floss, and industrial applications. PFAS have effects on our bodies at extremely low exposure levels. And since we're talking about breast cancer, PFAS are linked with problems with breasts and breast cancer. So for instance, studies have shown that PFAS have harmful effects on the development of our breasts, as well as their function. And some studies have shown that women with higher exposure to these PFAS chemicals breastfeed for a shorter period of time because their breasts stop producing milk. So this is also linked with the onset or inducement of breast cancer by increasing the density of breast tissue. So it increases the risk of breast cancer. And again, at extremely low exposure levels, but you can also see a lot of the other health effects linked with this, including certain cancers, especially kidney cancer and testicular cancer, can damage our liver. It increases cholesterol, lower birth weight, babies, which can have lifelong effects on the child as they develop into adulthood as well. And they can also affect our immune system and reduce our ability to fight infection and to reduce the ability of vaccines to be effective. These are some of the sites around Alaska. And again, the more we know that there are more communities that have not yet been tested that are very likely contaminated. And this includes now over 469 sites in Alaska where PFAS is known to be contaminating drinking water or soils or both. And many communities, as I mentioned, have unsafe levels of these chemicals in drinking water. But there is some hope. We're working on legislation right now, and we would love to have your support in this effort. There's a bill in the state legislature called Senate Bill 67, and its companion bill, which is House Bill 166. And this is a bill that would ban the use of PFAS substances in these firefighting foams that are used in industrial situations, military bases, and airports. And this is an important measure. We have really said over and over that this is just the beginning of what we have to do to address the problem of PFAS contamination, but it's an important way to prevent further harm. So would love to, again, have you involved with this. If you'd like to testify, write a letter of support, please do, and we can work with you to help you do those things. I'm going to talk just briefly about plastics. Plastics also are a big concern to us, and we know that the North and the Arctic is not only a hemispheric sink for chemicals, but also plastics. And the Arctic Ocean now has the highest concentrations of plastics of any ocean on Earth. And the plastics themselves are definitely a problem, but the plastics also carry a load of chemicals. And in fact, thousands of chemicals are used in the production of plastics. And many of them are the chemicals that have been talked about in this webinar. But over 16,000 chemicals in plastics, and none are identified or classified as safe. So we really want to try to address and phase out harmful plastics, the chemicals in plastics, and to find safer alternatives, of which there are many. And these are just some of the ways that we can reduce plastics in our own lives, in our own communities. So you can make choice to use and store food in glass, ceramic jars, stainless steel containers. Really important in this one, never microwave food or drinks in plastic, because the toxic chemicals in those plastics, especially when the plastics are heated, can leach out into that food or beverage. These are some of the most harmful plastics to try to avoid. And also a lot of the cardboard now, like in pizza boxes, but also packing boxes, are coated with PFAS substances. So try to avoid that as well, especially when you're cutting and preparing food. Avoid giving children plastic teethers or toys, again, because toxic chemicals in these plastics can leach out into their mouths and into their bodies. And try to, as much as possible, use natural fiber clothing, bedding, and furniture. A lot of the synthetic materials are essentially plastics. So these are just a few thoughts about ways we can work together. These are some policy-related things, as well as some additional suggestions for you in your own lives to eliminate the use of single-use plastics, plastic bags, and other plastics that are really non-essential. And there is a some national legislation called Break Free from Plastics. We're also urging people to support that. And we're also really supporting putting forth human health and human rights as the core of any policies that we work toward, whether at the state, the national, or the international level. So I think that's my last slide. There is one very hopeful thing happening right now, and that is that the nations of the world have come together, largely because of pressure from groups like ours, to negotiate a new legally binding treaty on plastics. And this is something that ACAT and many other organizations around the world are working to support and to eliminate the industry's influence over this, because plastics are basically fossil fuels. So you can imagine that fossil fuel corporations, chemical corporations, many of them one and the same, are working to make this treaty as weak as possible. And we're there supporting a very strong treaty to phase out plastics, to eliminate toxic chemicals in plastics, and really to address the entire life cycle of plastics, which starts with the production of fossil fuels, and then usually ends in the disposal of plastics in poor communities, in communities of color, and communities of the global South, where countries like the US and Europe tend to ship plastic waste to countries in Africa, Central and South America, where they end up not being recycled, but being burned and causing harm in those communities. So it's really an entire harmful life cycle that we really want to move away from, and to develop safer products that that do not cause harm, either upstream or downstream. So I'll stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pam. That's such important work, and it's a lot to digest. It's a lot to think about, and we're just doing our best to protect our health. So thank you. If anyone has any questions, wants to have any discussions, feel free to unmute yourself or type it in the chat.
Jasmine, while you set that up, I just want to share about the plastics piece. We're seeing fish die off, bird die off, seal die off, whale die off in the Arctic, and we're facing that where we live on St. Lawrence Island, Savoonga, which is our traditional name. 3 summers ago, one of our work group members, Stelbert Pangawi, went to the cliffs. Normally, we have so many cliff birds. The sky turns black and it's so thunderous and loud from so many birds. But that spring and summer, there were none. And we think that as there was the warming of the ocean, the surface of the ocean, the food, the plankton, and that the birds and fish rely on have to go in lower into the ocean, and maybe they're mistaking plastics as their food, and this is alarming. And I feel like I should be sharing things personally that are happening in my community and in myself, you know, and I've had 3 miscarriages myself. I'm a cancer survivor. So this is why I do this work. And it's great. We're a small woman-led organization. I have a lot of gratitude to be part of this organization. We're a small woman-led organization. All of our board members are women. Majority of them Alaska Native women. We're all about educating, offering education, as you heard from Sara and Pam and Sama and Jasmine, how manufacturers and do not take our health into account, and there's no oversight. And so these are just some ways we want to offer education. So as women, you know, we're nurturers and caregivers, and you know, we our wombs are our child's first environment, and that's why I do this work, to protect our children and future generations, so that our Yupik people from Savoonga can continue, so we can pass on our languages, our creation stories, our songs and dances, our traditions and cultures.
And if anyone has any lingering questions after this gathering, if you look in the agenda, we have all of our emails in there. So if you ever want to reach out to any of us, email us. Our lines are always open.
Does one of you want to read the comments?
Myra said, do you know who is the largest producer of pollutions in regards to plastic and air pollution? Can you provide some tips about avoiding plastics?
I can give that one a go. The largest producers of plastics are really the fossil fuel companies like ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips. They're really behind all of this. And then there are secondary producers that produce all the different types of plastics. And there are some plastics are definitely more harmful than others. Polyvinyl chloride is made from vinyl chloride, which is a carcinogenic, a cancer-causing substance. Styrofoam is made from polystyrene, also cancer-causing. So maybe I could go back to my slide about about ways that we can avoid plastics. Well, I'll just talk through it. So I think the most important thing is don't microwave in plastic. Again, because when you heat up plastic, the toxic chemicals that are in that plastic leach out into the beverage or to the food that you're microwaving and warming up. So very important to use glass when you're microwaving. That's one thing. And then, just the best you can avoid the most harmful plastics like PVC. A lot of children's toys are made from PVC plastic. And again, when they put the toys in their mouth, even things like rubber duckies, of course, the toxic chemicals are going to leach out into the baby's mouth and into their bodies. Same with some of the teethers and things like that. So finding safer alternatives to those types of plastics, I think, is very important. And just do the best you can. I know we can't fully eliminate plastics from our lives, but do the best you can to avoid single-use plastics, plastic bags, and those little shampoo bottles and things like that are so wasteful. And that's really the largest source of plastic waste in our oceans, in our marine environment, in our rivers and streams. So they go to the landfill, they go to places and get burned. When plastics are burned, the burning of plastics results in production of some of the most toxic chemicals on Earth, known as dioxins and furans. So avoiding the burning of these plastics and do the best we can to phase them out. We do need policies, but at the local to international levels, maybe your community could do a plastic bag ban. Many communities around Alaska have done that. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that at the state level, there's a hopeful thing happening too. I just found out this morning that one of our state legislators, Representative Andy Josephson, is planning to introduce a bill in this legislative session that would ban styrofoam for use in food packaging, which is another hugely wasteful use of plastic, and many safe alternatives to that. And styrene, again, is cancer causing. So we can be on the lookout for that bill, support it, and see if we can get that passed throughout our state. So just a few thoughts. Thanks.
Another question is, how about soda cans and the plastic bottles of soda?
Yeah, a lot of food cans as well as beverage cans are lined with bisphenol A, which is one of the chemicals that Sama talked about in her presentation. Some will say BPA free. That maybe is a safer alternative, but then they usually substitute what we call regrettable substitutes with plastic chemicals that can be just as harmful or sometimes even more harmful. So again, glass is a better choice if you possibly can. I know that's not always possible, but if you can choose glass over plastic and even aluminum cans or steel cans that are often lined with either the bisphenols or even sometimes PFAS substances.
Pam, can I add something? And also to make the plastics flexible, the thinner, the more flexible the plastic, they use chemicals to give them those properties. So the single-use plastic, that's a one of the biggest part of the issue also. There's the chemicals and the manufacturing of them. But those single-use plastics, now the water bottles, oh, they're more flexible. Oh, how nice, lighter. No, not nice, actually. So
Yeah,
keep an eye on that. Yeah.
I think I saw something in the news recently where they did a study testing microplastics in bottled drinking water, and it had a lot of microplastics in it. So that's something to consider. So Annie in the chat, what about PVC plumbing pipes? Does anyone know anything about that?
That's a tough one because PVC or polyvinyl chloride was used to replace in large part leaded pipes or lead-based pipes, because at that time people thought it was safer, but now there are a lot of studies that show that PVC leaches cancer-causing vinyl chloride into the water. There are copper pipes. There's not an easy replacement for PVC piping. So, you know, if you have Brita filters, that helps. But if you have a filtration system that's not plastic-based, that's even better. But it's very difficult. There's not an easy alternative for PVC plastic pipes. Sorry to say.
Only 13% of plastics recycled, is that correct?
It's much lower than that, actually. It's
8%?
probably less than 9%. And here in Alaska, it's probably around 1%. I've just done some research on this for a report that we're working on, just because there aren't good systems in place. And there aren't great systems to recycle plastic. And if you dispose of it, if it goes into a landfill, ultimately it ends up in our oceans or streams or rivers, or it gets burned. Again, you know, the problem with burning is that it contaminates the air, which is harmful to downwind communities. So the best thing that we can do is to try to reduce plastics, to get these corporations to stop producing plastics that are not necessary. We know there are some uses that are necessary, maybe like medical uses or things like that, but most of the plastics that we have in our lives are simply not necessary. So first of all, getting the corporations to stop producing plastics. And I will say that there's, I think, a dangerous trend. The industry saw this coming years ago, the fossil fuel industry, that is. They saw that with the coming of renewable energy sources, that their market was going to decline. So they put most of their investment into making more chemicals and more plastics, so that if you look over the next 20 years, they're projecting, the industry themselves are projecting a huge exponential increase in the production and use of plastics. That's what they want, so that they can continue manufacturing, extracting and manufacturing these harmful substances. As we're trying to transform to a renewable energy economy, they want to keep us dependent on their products, which are fundamentally fossil fuels.
I wanted to point out too, one thing, you know, on a great larger level, we should all be advocating when we know about these things. We should advocate as much as we can by supporting like the legislation that ACAT's helping out with, the plastics bill right now and stuff like that. But one other way we can put pressure on companies to make these changes is to purchase the products that are not using plastics already. And I know that sometimes they can be more expensive, but you can find, you know, deodorant that comes in a paper container, and you can find more and more these days, because that is a trend that people are wanting. And they're, as we are using our wallets to create the world that we want to see, it does send a message to the companies that this is what we want. This is what we're going to be buying more and more of. And I want to point out, like, there's a really great store here in Anchorage called Alaska, the AK Blue Market, where they have bulk products. They use, they have glass. People can bring their own reusable glass bottles, and they provide them for people to take. And so more and more businesses like that have these models that are going back to probably how things were before the oil and gas industry came in with all the plastics, the better off we'll be. There was one other question in the chat about is ACAT addressing runoff in agriculture?
Well, I'll start us off on that one. Since our very beginning, we've worked for ways to protect our watersheds, protect our soils and water partly through a project that we have that's called Yardicopia, which educates people about ways to grow food in a safe way without the use of toxic pesticides and industrial fertilizers. So we try to walk our talk in that respect. And then also, we've worked with a lot of farmers in the valley to prevent the use of toxic sludge, which has been used to supposedly improve soils, but it ends up making them more toxic. And we actually got an ordinance in the Matsu Valley that prevents the spreading of toxic sludge on agricultural land in the valley. But generally, I think our work to stop the use of toxic chemicals through policy and actions, prevent the use of things like toxic sludge, as well as just protect the health of our soils and waters, that's also really fundamental to the work we do. And we work also with a lot of farm worker communities around the country, not just in Alaska, but that are working to protect farm worker and farm worker communities' health and join in solidarity with them to do that in states where there's larger industrial agricultural practices. I probably forgot something, so I welcome anybody to add anything.
I wanted to add, Pam, the pesticide-free ordinance that we were able to pass with the support of the Anchorage Assembly several years ago. It's not agriculture, but it's to avoid pesticide spraying in public parks in Anchorage. So another important, I think, win for the community here.
Any more remaining thoughts or questions about breast cancer, reproductive health and justice? Really anything?
We're gonna have a face-to-face Indigenous Women and Girls Gathering. We're looking at summertime in Nome that's offered to women in our region. We have free collaborative on health and environment calls, and maybe this is some of the information Jasmine will share, some upcoming events we have. But there's so many ways that you can get involved. So I encourage you to share what you learned here, because it's going to take all of us, as we have come to learn. These multinational corporations are driven by greed and profit and do not take public health into account. So we've recognized that, and that's why we're offering these webinars.
Yes, thank you, Vi. So there's the Just Transition Summit that is coming up in March. That's happening in Juneau, Alaska. It's from March 18th to the 20th with a lobby day on the 21st. And we are hosting our Indigenous Women and Girls Gathering in person in Nome, and that's coming up on May 28th until the 31st, and that's in Nome. I don't know if I said that, but so if you're in the Nome area or would like to go, that is happening. And yeah, I just I don't know if there's any remaining thoughts or questions, but all you think of them, I just wanted to thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and I hope you are able to learn something new and can make changes in your life to protect your health. If you have any questions or would like to chat, please feel free to contact any of us ACAT staff. Our emails are listed in the agenda I shared at the beginning of the webinar. So, yeah.
Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.